Before I begin, I would like you to do something for me. Please close your eyes for 5 seconds. Now imagine this. The country where you were born doesn't want you. The land of your ancestors refuses to recognize you. Every document, every law, and every border tells you you do not exist. You have no flags to look up to, no passport to hold, and no soil that belongs to you. You can open your eyes. I know many of you could not have truly imagined that. You might ask, is that even possible? But for me, this is not an imagination. This is my reality. I'm a Rohingya. I was born in a refugee camp in Bangladesh, born without a state. My story began before I was even born in the Rakhine state of Myanmar. In 1992, my parents were forced to leave Myanmar to Bangladesh. And then I was born into a cage of nowhere. In the refugee camp, education stopped at class 5. After that, if I wanted to study more, I had only one option: keep repeating the same year again and again until hope quietly disappeared. But every morning, I watched Bangladeshi children walk past the camp in beautiful uniforms. They were moving forward, but I was standing still. Then something burned in me. I wanted to learn, to grow, and to have a future like any other normal child of my age. So I broke the rules. With a fake birth certificate and a teacher's help who believed in me, I entered in a formal school in Bangladesh. But I quickly learned that education was not just about books. It was about survival. I was bullied, threatened, blackmailed due to my identity as a Rohingya refugee who doesn't have a country. One day, a classmate whispered, "You are a Rohingya. You are not allowed to study here." That was the moment I understood something very early of my age, that identity is the permission to be human. Without it, I was prey. After that day, I started practicing in front of a camera, of a mirror, every single day. I didn't practice a lesson. I practiced a fake identity. I practiced a fake identity and a fake name until I believed my own lies. My hands would tremble with fear that I would be caught. I used to feel like I wasn't even a human. But the hope of finding an identity through education kept me alive. Through continued advocacy for access to higher education, supported by UNHCR, I finally found my way back to university in Bangladesh. I received the Dafia scholarship. That time, UNHCR did not just support my education, it saved my life. I have come so far, but my fear still grew. To have good friends mean they will normally ask, "Where are you from?" But for me, that was the most terrifying question to answer. So I lived in total isolation by hiding myself to survive. But that fear did something incredible. It invented something, a new strength in my mind. Even while I was hating the marks I had to wear, I was performing an act of defiance. By my daily risk was my advocacy. By simply sitting in that classroom, I was demanding a right that the world had denied for my people. Then, one day the world fell on me. An online media news portal revealed my real identity. During that time, 1 second felt like a year of hell, as if my breath would have stopped. I felt a selfish hatred for my own existence. I asked myself, why was I born to survive all this? But some friends stood by me. They said, your identity doesn't matter. You are our friend. Their kindness mattered to me, but it couldn't change the law. To the whole system, I was still an error in the code. In 2021, I somehow managed to complete my bachelor degree. I thought this degree will be my identity. But I was wrong, because I was not allowed to study. The reason is I'm a Rohingya. I was forbidden to work. Then I had to go back to that dark, tiny room in the refugee camps. It is like hell. I couldn't open the window to look at the sun, because people like me supposedly didn't deserve fresh air. I spent months in that room. I had panic attacks, even 3 times a day. I stopped eating. That room was the graveyard of my dreams. I used to think about ending my life every single day. Then I asked myself, if I die now, why I survived all this? Why did I endure years of humiliation and fear just to disappear silently? Then that question changed everything. It didn't erase the pain I had, but it gave me a reason to stay. Even from darkness, I continued my advocacy for access to higher education. After 2 years, through persistence, advocacy, and to refuse to give up, I earned the opportunity to study in Japan as the first Rohingya woman from my refugee camp to do so. Not because I was lucky, but because I refused to disappear. Today, I live in Japan. I have a beautiful room. I can see the light, the sun. I can move freely. I can access to higher education. But my suffering has not ended yet. Because when someone asks me, where are you from? The laundry opens. Because my document still describes me as a stateless, which means I don't legally exist in this world. But I want you to understand something very clearly. Being stateless was not my choice. It was the system that decides who is allowed to belong and who is not. For decades, the Rohingya people were forced to live without legal recognition and protection in Myanmar. The entire generations grew up excluded from citizenship, education, and basic human rights. Over time, this exclusion forced Rohingya families flee again and again, carrying displacement across generations. In 2017, this explosion escalated into mass violence and forced displacement. The world watched as hundreds of Rohingya were forced to leave their homeland. Today, that number has grown up to more than 1.2 million people living in the refugee camp in Bangladesh alone. According to a UNICEF report, more than 21% of them are children. Think about the children who are being born right now across the camps in Bangladesh, Malaysia, Indonesia, and other countries. What did this child do to deserve a life without a state? These children are born without citizenship. They grow up without legal rights. They enter into their adulthood without right. A stateless person cannot choose freely where to live. They cannot legally work. They cannot access to higher education. From an early age, they are taught to plan their life around survival instead of possibilities. And when these children become adults, the world still calls them refugees, as if time has stopped for them. But this statelessness does not end in childhood. It follows you into adulthood, in every job application, every border crossing, every question of belongings. Without identity, talent remains invisible, unseen. Work remains exploitable, and voices remain unheard. And when the Lord does not see you, harm becomes easier, exploitations become normal, and silence becomes dangerous. The theme of today is rethink, rebuild, and rise. So I want you to rethink what it means when a human being does not have any legal identity. Stop seeing statelessness as a tragedy and start seeing it as an injustice, systematic injustice that the world allows to exist. Rebuild a world where a child's birthright includes a name, a nationality, and protection. A world where children are not born into legal invisibility. And rise not as the observers, but as the people who refuse to be silent, because silence does not protect victims, it protects the system that harms them. Do not look away, and do not let the world create more stateless people. My name is Rozina Akter. I am a Rohingya woman. My story is not alone mine. It is the story of every Rohingya children being born without nationality, without a name. The system calls me the girl from nowhere. But they are wrong. I am here. I exist. And I rise not only for myself, but for every children still growing up without a name, a nationality, and a place to belong. Thank you.